All right, hi. So we're a little bit later today, but it doesn't matter, does it? A few minutes, and so we're live for the Q&A for sales. Thursday is always sales Q&A. This is episode 27. So thanks as always to those of you who are joining either live or later on. I really appreciate getting several hundred views of these videos, once they come out. I'm really impressed with that, so thank you again. Thanks also for those of you who sent any questions in. If you have a sales question, if you're selling, which most of you running a business should be in some form, then you can ask it here on the live Q&A, and I will do my best to answer it. So yeah, episode 27 means we're moving now into the second half of the whole year of running these, and I can't see any reason why I would stop after 1 year anyway, so it's been really good fun doing them. So first questions came in sent to me this morning by Benjamin Allen. He said, what's a solid way to close on chat or on Messenger? Hello, Carradine. Thank you for joining all the way from Australia, big man. And Carradine's worth checking out, of course, as well, with his sales skills and his course too. So hope you're well, big man. And by the way, it's about 0 degrees here and it's been snowing today, so please don't share the weather in Australia. So yeah, Ben Allen says, what's the solid way to close on chat or Messenger? Let's get really clear about what happens here. So I'm going to work on the basis that probably you haven't met the person before. And if you're trying to close someone on chat or on Messenger, so Facebook Messenger, for instance, what you need to understand is that you are missing vital components that make life a lot easier when it comes to closing people. The easiest way to close, you may not realize this, but the easiest way is to recognize that, yeah, thanks, 42 degrees, nice. So it's boardies, is it? And no shirt. Thanks, Carradine, good comment. But basically, the best way to close people is in person, because you have the benefit of the visual. You can see the subtle nuances on their face. You know, are they paying attention? Are they getting what you're saying? And those things, your inbuilt ability to process is being used. In addition, you can sense body language in other ways as well, but also you can hear. So you can hear inflections in their voice, you can hear emphasis as well. So that's why being on the phone is better than chat as well. The problem with being on chat compared with being on the phone, Adam, great to have you here, thanks so much for joining, mate. And so the problem with being on the phone is that you don't get the visual. The problem with chat is you don't get visual, but you also don't get that emphasis like I'm giving here when I'm describing things. So there's a thing I always hear, which is look. There's a thing I always say rather, which is look, when it comes to sending messages, email or chat, tone or tonality does not carry. What this means is that you have to be very careful and measured in how you create the right kind of language there. But let's look at answering this question directly. So how do you close in a solid way on chat? What you need is a cue from the prospect that you now can go ahead and close. And this is what I always say with any type of closing, not just on chat or Messenger, but anywhere. You have to earn the right to close a deal. You have to earn the right. This is why people fail, such as on Instagram and so on, when they start with their first message being, hi there, let me tell you why you should buy my product. And what they're not doing is recognizing they're selling to a human being. And actually it's more effective to engage, build a relationship, and actually have a conversation with the person. So let's get to practical steps. First, you need to build a relationship. Start having a conversation with someone. Give value, okay? Help someone out. What you're looking for in terms of a cue is someone showing you through what they're typing back that they feel really good about the stuff you're giving them. Because you want to get that cue so you know when you can close them. So on a chat or on Messenger, what I would suggest you do is you give as much value, assist, help, ask questions, consult, guide someone. And what you're looking for in terms of a cue is that moment when the person on chat says to you, do you know what? That's really helpful. Or actually, thank you. I'd never looked at it that way. Or wow, that's really inspirational, or something along those lines. So it's that moment where you're chatting away, then you're starting to show you're an authority in certain areas, you're elevating yourself by giving great value and tips in your area of specialty, whatever it might be. And when they say, do you know what, that's a really great way of looking at it, you're helping me so much, thank you so much, man, I feel I should be paying you, or whatever it is, when you get that thanks, that is your first cue that you could go to close. I say could, if you're good at this and you're getting a very effusive cue from them, like, wow, I really love what you're doing, oh my God, it really made a difference, well then that's the point where you ask them, you know what, why don't you try this out then? We've got this and you're providing a solution. You've earned the right to close them there. That's how it works. What you might choose to do if you're a little inconfident, not really confident to begin with, what you do is you look for that second cue. So again, earn the right by creating a cue, then go create another cue. Now they're like, look, this is brilliant, that's really helpful. You have every right now, okay, to say to them, do you know what? I really think I can help you. I'm doing a trial right now where I'm offering a sample of my product for a week for half price with a money back guarantee. What do you think? And if you provide them with that, they'll say, why would they say yes? Because you've positioned them and they're like, all I can see is value with this person, so why would I not be involved? Okay, so what you're doing is you're assisting and helping throughout, and then you earn the right through having that cue. You may feel or think that it's the right time to close, but nothing beats them saying, do you know what, that's a really good point. Thank you so much, that really helps. That's the validation you're needing. So that's a solid way to close on Messenger, because you're getting them to give you permission to then ask. They're basically saying, look, you made it, that's good, I like that, that's great, you can stay, let's continue talking, and not least, I'm really feeling great about the value you're giving me. Now it's time to move to the next level. Because what can happen is if you miss these cues, you just keep doing it, and then you end up in it's like you're helping the person but you're not taking it to the next level. And if you're a service provider or a product supplier, you need to take it to the next level. That's not to stop the dialogue altogether, but what it does do is move them to a position where they now get to try your product or be closed, basically. So hopefully that helps. Ben actually asked the second question. He's asked what nuances are different that make chat different from a phone or in person. Well, I mean, there's the obvious, for instance, which is that on chat, it's literally text. Unless you're a master of punctuation and grammar, and in my experience, like 70 or 80% of people aren't or don't employ grammar and punctuation properly in chat or Messenger. What it means is you're missing little nuances. So that's, the main thing with, as I say, with on the phone is you can really sense a lot, because you can hear how they're talking, you can hear when they don't talk, you can hear how they respond to you saying, do you think this part of the package would help, or something like that. If they're like, yeah, I suppose it might be quite useful, okay, that guy's not interested. But if they're like, yeah, that's definitely going to help me, all right, now I feel a bit more interested. I can hear that tone, even though technically they're kind of saying the same thing. And of course, in person, it's hard to describe because it's an innate thing, but there's a vibe is the best way of describing it, which is in a deep psychological kind of, or an unconscious level, that your brain, being a brain and a social creature, is able to decipher how that person generally feels. You can pick up on their vibe. That's why in person works. There's fear because you're encountering a real person, and there's an element of them not being as real when it's behind the phone or behind chat. But the reality is, you get that human element. So it's balance, really. They are the main differences, I would say. And I would say, I've done sales in many forms for 15 years now, and the first couple of years I really learned the art of sending email and sending messages and things like that to people when it was text only. And the art of, phraseology is so important so that you get someone feeling really what you're trying to say, because I tell you what, things can be read in the wrong way all the time. A really good example, actually, someone close to me recently was having a bit of a problem with one of their friends, and they showed me a message, like a text message they sent. They're like, look at this on my phone, look at what they're saying. And I said to myself, try reading this message in a different way, as if it was completely innocent, and you could do it. And the reason why that message for my friend appeared to be really aggressive and filled with malice was because their point of view was, I don't like that person, I'm not going to give them the benefit of doubt, so I'm going in with a negative default here. Whereas in fact there's a bit more logic in just trying to take it on face value. The bottom line is this: when it comes to engaging with people, if you can avoid chat and go to phone, if you can avoid that, go to Skype. If you can avoid that, get yourself in front of them. I always did this when I was building a business in London in 2008. We made £1 million business in the first year. It was just under £1 million. And I would be, we were drumming up business. This was in healthcare, in placing people into major roles. So we're talking like £100,000 deals here. And I would make a first call and create a connection, and I'd say to them something like, look, I'm going to be in Zurich next week. It's really good timing. Why don't I come and see you? And they're like, yeah, no problem. Get the phone down right. Book a flight now. I'm going to Zurich because I want to get in front of them. If someone's the other side of town or the other side of London, don't sit on the phone. Get on the train and go and see them. Unless, of course, you need to batter the phone, make hundreds of calls because actually your deal value is tiny. But when it's 30, 40, 60,000 pound deals, you need to get in front of people. So you would bear it in mind based on what you're doing. But email shots can help, sure, but the bottom line is you can't beat using your own voice, and that's what the benefit is of getting on the phone. And I think everyone should be trying it at some point. It's a scary thing for many, but you just get used to it, and after a while you realise that you're just talking to people and you can get so much more from a conversation. If you receive an email from someone showing a bit of interest, get them on the phone. All right, if they're the other side of the planet. If they're nearby, go, well, let's meet for a coffee. Don't even answer the question. Just write, look, thanks for the email, great question. I tell you what, let's meet up. I'm here later on today. Are you free? Or I'll drop in your office for a coffee. Get in front of them as much as you possibly can. Stepping down from, if you can't meet them in person, is Skype, because you still get that element. It's not exactly the same, but you get the element like you have here of seeing me. And then the step down is phone, but chat is like light years down in terms of efficacy. It's very valuable if you know what you're doing, but it's not as capable as the others, okay? I think there's a couple of comments there. You're more likely to close sale in a call than in Messenger because it's a call you're putting on the spot. Yeah, possibly, Adam. It depends, of course, on how the call's going. You're absolutely right. I do think you got the benefit of that live feel. When you're both talking, you might interrupt slightly, or you might kind of jump in at some point, or you might hold back, and you there's a real kind of live feel. Whereas even if it's live chat, there's this element of it's your turn next, now it's my turn, now it's your turn. And turn-based chat is obviously less natural, and so you don't get the same kind of vibe as you do in person or on the phone. But yeah, hopefully that helps a bit, and thanks, Ben. Really good questions to ask there. So the next one's from Harvey Hook. He asks, Richard, what are the subtle cues that people will give you to show they're ready to buy? We're all on the same kind of lines here with these questions today. Look, the subtle cues are they're quite wide-ranging, and I was teaching yesterday in London different parts of sales process, and one of the lectures I was giving, it was actually turned into a really good workshop, was on objection handling. And there's this great fear that many have with objections, and I know there's this cliche, objections are your friend and objections are good, but that doesn't really help. There's not a solution in there. The thing is, with objections, an extreme example of someone not having interest, if you're making a phone call, is hanging up on you or walking out of the shop or whatever it is, because they just simply don't want to engage with you at all. But if someone's going, everyone's busy, right, during the day, and if you've called someone and they have a problem and they've decided to expend energy telling you why they've got this problem, it's a demonstration of an element of interest. And the reason why, really simply, is because they didn't have to do that, but they've chosen to do it. And it's a display of interest because it's feedback. So I usually, when I train new people, I'm like, yeah, it's an objection, but look at it as good feedback, okay? It doesn't mean they're not sold or not interested or it won't be a deal. It means they're probably partially there, but to a degree, they're not quite there yet enough to be sold. And what that means is you kind of half there, But if you can do whatever it is that you need to do, you then got a deal. And a classic example was 2 years, no, it was about a year and a half, no, it was January last year when I was buying my wife a car. We literally said, we looked at this car and the guy in the showroom said, are you happy with it? Do you want to get it? Or whatever it was. And my wife was like, no, I don't really like it. Now on face value, it's like, oh man, she's not going to buy the car. She's not interested. But when you ask, the reality is she was actually just saying, I don't like it because I don't like the colour. And in fact, the car's perfect. And in fact, when we changed the colour, so if it was in this colour, would you do it? Would you buy it? Yeah, perfect. The car's absolutely fine. It's just that I didn't like that colour. And it's interesting that an objection is taken with such negativity, but the reality is it is no sale until your objections are actually handled. So what you need to do is ensure that you recognize that is feedback. So answering this question here, subtle cues that they're ready to buy is in fact often giving you an objection. If there's a knee-jerk objection like, I'm just not interested in this kind of thing, is this a sales call? Then obviously that's not a recognition they're going to want to buy. But later on, once you've presented and have a bit of a chat and back and forth and some kind of consulting is going on, to give you an objection tends to me it's a real problem they have. Like, if we can handle this, I would probably do it, is what they're saying. That's a really good sign. It means you're kind of getting there. They get it, they're seeing how they could make use of your service. And so it's important to look at that. I think also, going back to the top of this session when I was talking about this idea of a cue from someone that says, do you know what, that's a really good way of looking at it, Richard, or that really helps a lot. I'd never looked at it that way. This is really helping, thank you. When you're engaging with them, what that means is they are feeling good to buy. And so that's why a trial close is a good time for a trial close then to say, well, what do you think then? Should we do something? Why don't we look at a way in which we could work together? What do you think? It seems like a good fit right now. Why don't we talk about how I think I can help you in the next couple of weeks? Does that sound good? I'm doing it again because I'm asking, but it's only because I've earned the right. I've got that kind of permission from them, from those cues. So they are subtle cues. I think when you're face to face with someone, you can kind of feel that a bit more as well. Are they looking at you? If they're taking notes, are they actually taking notes? Are they kind of looking around at other things, body language? Are they actually facing you? Are they like, yeah? When you ask a question that's going to get a yes, are they just like, yeah, or yeah, like, what's the difference? Are they giving something that's a bit more energetic? And if they are, well, you're probably along the right lines. And the best way to understand it is that when you're closing, you don't have to be closing because it's now time for them to buy. You can trial close as you go. So, does this feel closer to what, does it feel like the kind of thing you'd like to do? Yeah, okay, I kind of think it could be. What you're doing is you're saying, how close am I now? Do I need to do a couple more things? Okay, I feel like I'm getting there. And it's all about just checking in with them. I'm checking in now. Okay, am I there? Okay, I'm feeling like I'm there. The response from you is a good one. I'm clearly not there entirely. I need to build a bit more value, chuck a few more things in there and see how you feel and ask you a few more questions, get a bit more detail. Do you see what I mean? So that's the way to look at it. Okay, there are lots of different types of cues, and I hope that helps. So if you have any sales questions, think of them if you like, then you can write them in the chat here and I will happily answer them. That's no problem at all. One of the sales directors I once worked with actually provided me with one of the most important and impactful pieces of advice, and this was about 2004, I think it was, when he gave me that. If you're interested in finding out what that is, then there are 5 pieces of information that were very powerful for me from 5 mentors. Well, in fact it was 4 mentors and 5 pieces of information. That information is on a free audio book that I'm giving away. If you scroll down, I'll put the link in the in this video afterwards, but if you scroll down on my timeline you can see it, and you can download it completely free. It's about half an hour and it's a 5 most impactful piece of information. In addition, if you're in the 8-Step Startup group, then you can access it there as well. Okay, let's have a look. So Daniel, you've asked a question, how do you eliminate filler language? That's a really good question. So filler language, my understanding of it, but at least, so correct me if you understand it as different, Daniel. Filler language is when you're talking and you're putting words in like obviously or basically or clearly or and things like that. The thing is that to a degree, especially if you work from a script, to a degree, filler language has value. Now let me explain. It's very heavily caveated. Saying or or something like that is important if you're reading a script, because what it does is it creates, if you say it in the right way, of course, it creates a sense that it's just rolling off your tongue and you're just saying this as if you thought of it, as opposed to something you're reading. So filler language can help if it makes you sound a little bit more natural. What I do feel, however, is that you've got the problem with filler language is it's essentially words you're placing inside your normal conversation to give your brain a moment to think of something to say, or what to say next, or how to charge the words you're going to say next, or how to deliver it in the right kind of way based on the people you're speaking to. Now, getting that right is important, because what you don't want to do is demonstrate that you don't really know what you're talking about. Filler language can be very irritating, because what I always say with new starters to sales is that often they have a word. Everyone often has a word. For many it's basically or obviously, and they're like, obviously this, obviously that, or basically this, basically that, and it really gets quite annoying for the person who's listened to it after a while. The best way to overcome it is to record yourself. When I recorded myself like 14, 15 years ago, I remember thinking, wow, it's really crap how I keep saying whatever word it was at the time and filling, all as I was talking. And what you need to then do is, once you've got an awareness that you do use filler language and what that is, you need to, the only solution is you have to consciously police yourself. So you have to have part of your brain listening in on the very conversation you're having and saying, am I about to use that word? And you just stop, okay? And in fact, I remember my manager saying, bite your fist, whatever, like put your hand in your mouth. Just don't speak in those moments. Try and get used to it. And it becomes a habit, and after a while, you don't say it anymore. And less is more when it comes to talking. And in your mind, when you're saying something, you usually have a thread, and you know exactly where you're going. Just try and get there. Don't talk around too much, and you tend to find you can overtalk things. And if you're not punctuating, okay, or putting breaks in your talking by inviting the person you're speaking to speak back, so asking questions, then it doesn't really. You tend to find you turn people off. The way to do this is every time as you're speaking that you drop a point and you make a statement or you say something or you show something, you check in. Now, rather than just talking, what I'm saying is you check in and say, does that bit make sense? Or can you see what I'm saying? Or do you see what I mean? And what I'm saying here is that you're stopping yourself so that you can involve them, because the conversation equals the connection ultimately, which is what you're going to need to get your sale. But you need to go further than just stopping by chucking in even a momentary question like, can you see what I mean by that? Or does that bit make sense? Or are you with me? Or can you see what I'm saying? What you need to also do is let them respond. You really need to let them respond. It may well be that the person is then saying, yeah, no, I can see that actually. In fact, and then they're off and talking. Great. Now I've got a proper conversation. So the benefit of saving yourself from using filler language is that you can actually break up too much chat, which is basically gets boring for the person you're speaking to, and essentially you move to a position where you're now having a conversation. And all of you putting in comments there, you're absolutely right. Rewiring yourself, it's difficult because you have to be consciously policing yourself as you're doing it, and chatting is just something you've done all along. So to a small degree, it's like reprogramming how you talk, how you walk, or reprogramming how you breathe in and out. This is a real basic function, speaking, but you need to be more measured and calculated about the words you choose to use when you're speaking. Filler language is a comfort word basically. I think you're right, Vaughan. That's a really good comment. And what I tried to do early on in sales was, instead of using a filler word, indeed, if you like, for comfort while your brain's thinking, I used a filler pause and I just didn't say anything for that moment. So instead of saying, basically, just don't say a word, just say nothing and then carry on. After a while, you get a lot more in tune with accessing your brain and being able to talk, and you tend to find you don't use filler words quite as much, and you're not saying basically, obviously, essentially all the time, which is very, very irritating for people. So it's a really good question, Daniel. Thanks so much for sharing that, and hopefully that helps. That's my view. Next question I received yesterday was Adam Mosley. He said, Richard, what's the best method to transform customers into full-time clients? So I presume, excuse me, I presume what he means is someone who's maybe buying once to someone who's regularly buying. And look, there's a simple answer, which is to provide some kind of a subscription. And many of my customers do a one-off purchase, but then when I've done the purchase, I court them further and move them into orbit around me, so that there's maybe a monthly subscription or something like that, and that way you can service them on an ongoing basis. And when you're building a business, and I've talked about this on Monday's Q&As for the startup business Q&A, when you're building a business, you need to recognize the value of projectable income. So what I mean is saying, right, in March, it's February now, in March, I know this much money is coming in because you've got your subscriptions or, fees that are due to come in or whatever it might be. So another one of my businesses, which is in health and fitness and martial arts focus, every month there are set subscriptions that are paid, and it means every month I know exactly, unless something disastrous happen, I know exactly what's coming in. In fact, I get paid a month in advance with them. That's the way I've set it up, so I know where I'm at. And the question here is, what's the best method to transform them into full-time clients? Like with many things, you've got to earn the right for someone to say, do you know what, I want to create a standing order or direct debit or whatever it is. I want to create a situation where I can continually, be paying you because I feel like I'm getting great value. So it's a classic thing, just to keep things simple with this one, it's a classic thing. You should overpromise and you should then over-deliver. It's as simple as that. What you need to do is recognize that people are probably doing the same service or selling the same product you are. You need to provide something that people will think, wow, that's a lot more than I expected I would be offered. And then make them think, that would be crazy to get whatever you're offering, and then actually do it. So you overpromise and overdeliver. Don't underpromise, or don't just say what you're going to do and then overdeliver. No, overpromise. So like, wow, that's going to be amazing if you do that. Then overdeliver. Wow, you did it as well. Continuing to do that, like being impactful, changing people's lives, seriously, giving back and making a difference, it makes you move to a place where people want to work with you increasingly, and more regularly. And you get it right, because I've done this myself, when your clients, rather than finishing with you, like, with mine, for instance, when I'm coaching business leaders, okay, I've worked with you for the 3 months, Richard, normally you do it for 90 days, so 3 months, we work together, we've got some great results. Instead of them saying, thank you so much, it's been a really great 90 days, I've learned so much, it's been really powerful, they say, what would it look like if we continue then? How are we going to do, what happens next? And they're essentially saying, I want you in my life. I need this to continue. I need the accountability you provide, or, the results I'm getting are directly correlated to working with you. So I need this to continue. It's as simple as give them a reason to want to work with you full time. I know Adam, for instance, who's asked this question, is a full-time personal trainer. He works in a very high-end part of London with some very high-end clients. Now, the thing is, there are a lot of people who provide personal training, one-on-one in a gym or at a home or whatever it is, or in the park. And what you need to do is something a level above. Maybe, as well as just turning up once a week and giving them their session, or get 3 times a week or whatever it is, you also provide them with a weekly consultation. You fix their meals for you, provide them with extra stuff that they never even were going to expect. That's the thing that makes you, in the words of Seth Godin, remarkable. And if you're remarkable, people don't just want to buy more of you, they also share and tell people about you, which of course is the greatest form of marketing is people's word of mouth from them, your customers, to their friends. That's the greatest way of marketing, if you can get them to do that. Okay, so hopefully that helps as well. Thanks, great question, Adam. Erica is there, who I think is here. I think I saw her tune in earlier on this session. She asked me, Richard, what percentage is reasonable to give to retailers? I have vendors that could sell my product to the customer, so adding their percentage to a price, or should I decrease the price so they can earn? And I think she's saying the retailers are wedding planners. I think what we're basically saying here is, look, if I've got a product, okay, or a service, and I'm going to give it to other people to on-sell for me, kind of outsource the sales, if you like, what percentage should I give? As you might expect, there is no rule here for the percentage you should give. And some businesses are quite menial with what they give out as a percentage, some aren't. What you need to bear in mind is that if someone's going to try and sell your product and make a living from it, you need to look first and foremost at how many units realistically are you able to shift yourself. Because if you've got a product that is high volume sales, I don't know, as an example, but maybe sell light bulbs, right? You sell hundreds of thousands of them every month, ideally. You sell loads and loads and loads, because otherwise you're not going to make much money. You make 2 cents on as a margin on it, or whatever it is. If it's a really low ticket product where you have to sell volume, there's no sense in giving a crap percentage to people. What you need to do is recognize that you need to be fairly generous, because otherwise it's not going to be worth their while. Now, I'll come back to being generous in a second. If you look at the other extreme, because there's obviously a spectrum, but the other extreme where it's a high ticket product, maybe you only shift 3 units a month or 2 units a month, and it's worth $6,000 at a time, what you need to bear in mind is that there might be a lot more work behind selling it, but it may well be that if your vendor sells 3 units of your product, that's worth $18,000. So you don't need to pay them quite the percentage. You can pay them a little bit less. You need to factor in things like margin. What's the cost of sale anyway before you get into commission? And what therefore have you got left over? Because a margin is, the cost of the product minus all of the cost of sales. So buying it, putting it together, shipping it and all that. What are you left over with? If you're left with a tiny amount, okay, then it means that either they need to shift a load of them or you need to pay them a decent amount. And what I always think is, just think about how many realistically you could sell. If you're good at selling your product, then you're probably a fair representation. If you're crap at selling your product, you need to think to yourself, well, what would it be like if someone who's better than me sold maybe a few more, 30% more of what I'm doing, of what I can sell, because they are spending, all their time doing it. You've got to weigh these things up. Maybe that vendor sells loads of other products, so it's quite hard to work out. But the fact is that in terms of generosity, it's worth, in my opinion, having people be paid more commission than they would otherwise get. Screwing people who are trying to sell for you, it doesn't help, because what you find is that they don't do the extra. They don't go the extra mile when they could. And you get more sales and make more money if you pay them more, so you're giving them more of an incentive. So I've had people who have sold my courses before me in the past. I've had people who have sold my mentoring in the past as well. And I pay them very, very handsomely, serious commission on it. And when they're making 4-figure commissions on a single sale, what it means is that they decide when, they know they can make a load of money off it, they decide they might actually go and do a little bit more. And I remember it really well. There was one guy, there was actually a few of them doing the same kind of thing, but one guy in particular, and it was Boxing Day, or like New Year's or something like that, and most people aren't really thinking about working, and he was running through walls for me. He was going for it, and it's because he got paid so well if he got a sale. And so the thing is, I wouldn't have been able to spend as much time as that guy, or in fact the group of people, selling it myself. So it was worth it because I had what's called a haircut. I lost a bit of the margin because of course I was paying out commissions, but I got so much more because I was paying out to people who were actively really trying to sell it because they knew they were going to make good money of it. So Erica, you and I can consult on this, send me a PM if you like, and we can talk about it a bit more because you've got a unique scenario. But there's no set percentage. What you need to do is make sure you're not screwing yourself, but you also need to make sure you're being generous to those who are selling for you and really give them a reason to not just sell because that's what they do, but to go, do you know what, I'm going to really push this. I'm going to really evangelize and be passionate about getting your product out there for you, because it means I can make some really crazy money on it. And so you've got to inspire them with some really good commission, I suppose. So hopefully that helps. And it varies across the industry, but all those considerations are always relevant, I suppose. You know, it's just got to be, the bottom line is this, it's got to be worth it for the person who's selling your product. Otherwise, they're not going to bother. And if you make it just worth it, they're not going to put as much effort in as they might. Make it worth it, and then hell yeah, this is worth it. I could get, you know, when they're like, wow, I could be like making serious cash here, that's when you've got the price right. As long as you're not screwing yourself at the same time, it's fine. Sometimes it's worth taking less money yourself than you give out, because actually you end up still making more money because they are killing it because they can make so much. So just think on that, okay? And also scale it. Another way of looking at it is this: if you can get a load of people selling for you, you'll still make more money. Your scope is wider, you know, they can access more people, and that can help too. But yeah, let's talk about, if anyone else has got that scenario, then let me know. Let's do one last question, unless any of you have a question to add here. One final one from Lily Serrano. She says, Richard, what if you forget to ask a final closing question at the end of a face-to-face meeting, which would determine how serious a buyer is? Okay, face-to-face or over the phone being the most ideal way to gather that info. What is the best way to ask that question? Or has the ship sailed and I've just got to move on? So I think what I understand by this is that what you're saying is what do you do if you've had a meeting face to face and you haven't asked a final closing question, I guess, such as, so is this something you'd like to do? What that means is basically you've shown some of the product, you've left it inferred because you haven't said anything, you've left it inferred as to say, you know what, if you're interested, you contact me. Needless to say, it's best if the ideal solution is don't do it in the first place. Okay, having written that question, I presume it may have happened to you in the future. Just don't do it anymore. But to answer the question, if you can't get back in front of them, okay, you need to get them on the phone immediately. Don't even go near an email for this, okay? You need to create a reason to go back to them. It may be a little bit weird though if you go back to them, say, you know, knock on their door again, say, just before I go, I forgot to ask, is this something you'd actually like to do? It looks stupid. It looks like you haven't got a clue what you're doing. On the phone as well, just calling back, I'm really sorry to call back. I didn't ask, is this something you actually like to do or not? You could do it, I suppose. You could do it as a laugh and say, I can't believe I didn't even ask that. But you're making yourself look a bit amateurish. What I would do is I get back in front of them or get them on the phone immediately. Not, oh, I'll give them a break, I'll give them a break. No, immediately. Call back, almost with the laugh, as if you'd forgotten something. I know you have, but it's not that you forgot to close. That makes you look amateurish, remember. You've called him back. Do you know what? I just wanted to ask you something quickly. You're knocking on the door, you're walking in the room. Don't take a seat, just ask them. I forgot to ask, actually. Then ask them something about what you talked about earlier. You know, you said this about your business and how it's going to be growing in the next 3 months by this amount. I was wondering if this is impacting it, or is that I just was playing in my mind. I was wondering, and I forgot to ask you, and get a conversation going again, and then say, so, you know, when you're leaving, then say, look, we've agreed. Then I'll catch up with you on Friday or whatever, or tomorrow night or something. No problem at all. I mean, what do you think? Do you think this is the kind of thing you want to go ahead with? what I've done is I've asked the question I want to ask, but it doesn't look like I completely forgot about it, because it looks like I'm coming in under the guise of asking a different question. It just would save a bit of face. It would stop you looking quite as amateurish. I would do it that way. Get them on the phone, do the same kind of thing. Hi, so sorry, completely forgot. You could even say something like, completely forgot to get your email address, or I tried your email address, I don't think it's working. What is it again? Is it with a dot in the middle, or what? I don't quite get. Yeah. Thank you so much. Look, I tell you what, so just to confirm, I'm going to ping this over as in the email, like we said we do on the call earlier, and we're going to catch up later on today. I mean, just before I go, what do you think? Do you think this is the kind of thing you want to do? What do you think? And then just let him do the talking, and there, you've asked your question. But go back immediately and ask something else. Just came off across my head, I just thought of this thing, then you can ask, then you put your clothes in. But I say that the ideal solution is just don't do it in the first place. Always ask them. Always. You know, what do you think? It's not hard to say. Because if you're scared of saying, will you go ahead with it? Because sometimes it doesn't feel quite right to put it that way. It depends on how the relationship's been going with them. Just say, look, what do you reckon? Do you want to do it? Does it sound good? Does this sound good to you? What do you think? Whatever. Something along those lines. Whatever feels natural. But you must ask. You absolutely must ask. So, the ship hasn't sailed. You basically pull the ship back into harbour and you make the phone call straight away, okay? It's been great fun today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Benjamin Allen, Harvey Hook, Adam Mosley, Erica Azer, Daniel Nunez and Lily Serrano. Thanks so much for your wonderful questions. Thanks also for all of you who are jumping on these things. It's always good fun. That's 27 episodes of the Sales Q&A. That's a year and a week already. And so sorry it's a bit later today, but I had some errands to run. And like I say, I'm going to put a link now into the top here. So if you're interested in that piece of advice that I got from one of my sales directors that really impacted my businesses properly, plus 4 other pieces of advice that I received from my mentors, it is in my free audiobook, and I'll stick it up here for you so you can access it. But thank you so much. Any questions you've got, and those people I've mentioned, you know, if you need to PM me, then do. But otherwise, have a great Thursday. I'll catch up with you really soon. Take care. Bye-bye.